Welcome. All right. We're going to get started with Classroom Management 101. All right. And something that I've thought about when I've thought about classroom management is that there's behavior management strategies that I've learned about in textbooks and classrooms and whatever. And then I've learned about early childhood developmental approaches, and they don't usually align for what's best for young children. And so I've thought a lot about this. Early childhood philosophies focus on preventing and eliminating misbehaviors through good teaching. Behavior management classes and textbooks, they offer strategies for individual students, and they're often not suitable for young children. Sometimes they'll involve extensive conversations or reading or writing, or they're just they're not like meeting the kids where they are developmentally. So effective behavior management for young children really requires a balance of preventative and reactive. So we'll talk about ways to prevent misbehavior, as well as how to react in the moment when misbehavior is happening. Preventative behavior management consists of teacher language, classroom setup, classroom rules, planning for transitions, and teaching social skills. So we'll get into all of that. All right. So Tanya, sorry, I misunderstood. I misremembered you from last workshop. So over 20 years of experience, great. Jump in anytime. If anything you want to add, we're happy to have you. So these are the principles for success. If you want to add to, they're in your workbook. If you want to jot down notes, if you printed it out, or you can type into the document, the workbook that you see here, you can take notes that way. So these are in your workbook. But I truly believe that if you believe in these principles and you put the proactive measures for classroom management in place, then you won't need all of these different classroom management systems that you see all over social media. What I see when I see those systems, I see either quick wins that don't last. I see extrinsic rewards that don't last, or I see public shaming. And I've had years where I felt exacerbated, and I've tried all the different systems, and I can say with certainty that what I'm about to tell you is the most consistent strategy that works year after year after year with every group of students. And the first thing that I want us all to agree on is, for classroom management, is to throw away behavior clip charts. Mm-hmm. I am not trying to shame anyone for using those in the past, but there is a ton of research that shows how clip charts negatively affect children and how they really don't work in terms of behavior management. So Dr. Mona Delahooke, a child psychologist, said that clip charts create more stress for all children in the class who fear that they will see their status shift due to bad behavior. Visual charts make students feel less safe in the classroom by activating them into a fight or flight pathway of the brain when a child fails to meet expectations. For children who do not yet have efficient or predictable top-down control over their emotions or behaviors, these behavior clip charts, are not useful and can cause additional needless stress for vulnerable children. So it creates undue stress for children, and it really negatively impacts their self-esteem. Children who find themselves routinely at the bottom of the clip chart tend to see themselves as the bad kid of the class, and the other kids see them that way too. And so they see themselves as bad, so they act bad, so they get labeled bad, so they see themselves as bad, and it becomes a vicious cycle. And you know, if all that doesn't convince you, here's one mom's explanation of the clip chart. She said, my son is scared to go to school because he's afraid he'll have his name moved down. I'm just not sure how to handle it. He's also telling me he's sad, but he doesn't know why. I'm really starting to worry it's depression because of school. So that's my spiel about behavior clip charts. So that's what doesn't work. We're going to talk about what does work today. And Tanya says, I think my biggest problem is going too fast at the beginning. We will definitely talk about that. And we're also going to talk a ton about that in the next workshop, Surviving and Thriving the First Month of Kindergarten. Because the first month of kindergarten is literally all about going slow in order to have a successful, independent classroom, run itself, have a good classroom management later on. So we'll definitely talk about that. That proactive piece is so important. So this goes into that. We're going to talk about both proactive and reactive strategies today, but this diagram really shows just how much of our work as teachers and classroom management is supposed to be proactive. And I think it's usually opposite. And I do think a lot of those quick and easy wins and systems that you see on social media are more reactive than actually getting into the proactive space. I'm not going to read it all for you. You can do that yourself. So, understanding behavior. Behavior is communication. If you walk away with one thing, no, I really want you to walk away with two things from today. But the first is that behavior is communication. When children are misbehaving or showing any kind of misbehaviors, they are communicating to you. And it's your job to figure out what that is. So put on your detective cap and get to work, because you want to solve the mystery of what the child is trying to tell you. Do they need more skill instruction? Are they lacking in a skill? Do they not know how to do something, like how to problem the peer or ask for a break or regulate themselves? Are they trying to escape a situation or avoid work? I think is a common one for kids. And why are they trying to avoid it? Is it too hard? Is it too hard for them? Are we expecting more of them than they're able to do right now? That can often cause misbehaviors. And I do see that a lot in kindergarten, because it's such a push down from first grade into kindergarten of the academic pressures and asking kids to do more than they're able to. We see an increase in behaviors because they're trying to avoid doing the work that they're not able to do yet. Maybe they're trying to get something like attention from you. And if you react a certain way, if they're trying to get your attention and you react to it, guess what? They're going to keep doing it because they got what they wanted and it worked. Or to get like sensory satisfaction, they just might need like sensory input, might be jumping around, stuff like that. So those are all the functions of behavior. So the second thing that I really want you to walk away with and remember is the only behavior that you can control is your own. You can guide and support behaviors all you want, but at the end of the day, the only behavior that you can actually control is your own. The way that you react to your students' misbehaviors can either help or hurt the situation. We need to stay calm, matter of fact, and not have big reactions. We need to see the students' behavior as communication. We need to act as a detective to figure out what they're trying to tell us. And we need to focus on the behavior itself and not the character of the child. So just because they threw something does not mean that like they're a bad kid, they're an angry kid. Like we don't want to just make a description about it, like they're a troublemaker. No, the behavior is they threw a chair. We should believe that children want to do better and that they can do better with reflection and practice. So just because they were saying hurtful things. Does not mean that they're a mean girl. Does not mean that they'll be forever a mean girl and there's no hope in changing them, right? We want to really believe that they can change. And we want to convey that message to the child is that the damage done is the problem and not them, not the child, right? And then we want to help them learn what to do the next time. So we'll get into all of that. And at any point, you have questions about what I'm saying, please drop them in the chat. Hopefully you can hear me. Am I back? Okay. I don't know if I froze for you, but I froze for me, so I paused. Anyway, relationships are one of the best preventative and proactive measures that you can put into place in your classroom. Building relationships with students is a foundation for social and emotional skills. Establishing trust and a positive relationship with students is critical for all students because they need to feel that they can trust you in order to learn. But it's especially critical for those students with challenging behaviors. And it's those students that are the most challenging for us to build relationships with because we're so frustrated by their behaviors. And that's normal to feel that way, but we need to put in extra effort to build a relationship with them. We want to start each day with a fresh start and expressing genuine gladness to see the student. So I had a student, as we talked about throwing chairs, they were throwing things all over the room, dropping F-bombs all the time, just exploding in anger left and right, just all the time. And I made a point every day to greet them at the door and say, I'm so glad to see you today. And it might not have helped that first day or the second day, but I know for a fact that that relationship that I built, the fact that he knew he could trust me to be there for him and to love him and to welcome him into the class, no matter how he acted. Every day I did the same thing. That helped. It took a while. There's no quick wins in this classroom management, but it works. It works. It just takes some time. And one of the other things I did with this student was he would earn some rewards and he would earn time to go play basketball or take a walk. And I made a point to do those with him so that I could spend the time where he's enjoying everything and he's having fun and it's a break time. There's no pressure. I can use that time to get to know him. I got to know things that he liked, his interests, about his family, his friends, I got to know him. And it was those times that definitely made a difference into our relationship. And I also want you to be mindful too of, there are students that don't seek you out, that don't cause a lot of attention seeking behaviors or need a lot of help or, whatever. And so those students are just as important to make relationships with as the students that are having all the behaviors that call your attention. So we're going to get into more preventative, proactive measures that focus all on teacher language. Because again, the only behavior you can control is yourself. And one of the big things you can control is your language. So it's one of the most important behavior management tools that we have in our toolbox. We want to use, there's a couple of different types of teacher language, but one of the things we want to focus on when talking to students is reflective and responsive statements instead of empty praise and judgment or evaluation. So for example, talking about things you notice as opposed to good job, right? Like, oh, I noticed you used all the colors of the rainbow, or wow, you worked on that writing the whole writing time. That was really hard for you, as opposed to good job, great writing, right? We want to be specific about what it is that we like, that we want to see more of, that we're impressed by, or it just adds a little more of that relationship piece when you're pointing out specific things that they did, as opposed to just a blanket, good job, that they don't get much out of that. We want to avoid using I statements Like, I don't like, I mean, I know I just used one with I notice, but it's a little different. It's I with the judgment. I don't like, or things like, well, that makes me really mad. That makes me upset, or that hurts my feelings, because it's not about us. Their job in school is not to please us, is not to make us happy. It bothers me when I see the classroom rule, like make your dear teacher happy. I don't like that, because it's not about making me happy. It's about them learning, them being safe, and them having fun. So I really try, obviously it slips out every now and then because it's in our vocabulary, but I really try to avoid using I statements, or that really frustrates me. I do think there's a time and place to talk about your own emotions as a model for how to regulate your emotions. Like saying, if the class is not calming down, instead of saying, you're talking too much and that is so frustrating to me, or I'm so frustrated right now because you're talking too much, versus I'm going to take a pause for a second because I'm feeling really frustrated and I need to take a deep breath to calm myself down. Okay, I think I'm ready. Right. Those are two very different ways to handle that situation. One is a teaching tool and one makes it about you. If that makes sense. When we're talking to students, we want to use a calm tone. We want to get down to their level. We want to give simple, direct instructions, especially if kids are in a behavior crisis, an escalated state. We want to use the most simple words and the fewest words possible, because they are not in a headspace to hear your directions. One of the worst things you can do when a kid is struggling in a moment of escalation is to give a long-winded direction, a long-winded conversation. That is not the time. We want to stay positive in our language, because we want to focus on what it is that we want the children to do. We want to avoid the negative. Don't do this. Stop that. Because what that tells the student is, okay, I shouldn't do this, but I don't know what I can do. What do you want me to do? What should I do better? Right? So the focus should always be on the positive. So these categories here we'll get into a little bit. Reinforcing, reminding, and redirecting are all from the Responsive Classroom, and they have a book called The Power of Our Words, and I would highly recommend it. I honestly look at it every summer as a refresher, or if I've had a particularly challenging group and I feel myself slipping, I pull this out and I look through this. So let's do a couple together. I'd love a little participation if you want. You could put in the chat. Instead of don't run, what could you say? Just a very simple tweak to our language to make sure we're saying exactly what we want students to do instead of what we don't want them to see. Instead of don't run, we could say walk. That's it. Just walk. Instead of stop talking, we could say work quietly. That's it. It's just exactly what we want them to be doing. So we'll get into some reinforcing language now. So reinforcing teacher language is often forgotten, but it should be the majority of the language used. And when I say if I'm having a tough time, I pull this back out, I find myself slipping and not doing enough of this. And this is what makes all the difference. This should be like 90% of what you say in the classroom. And I always struggle to remember that. So we're all human, it happens, but should be the goal, right? So it names concrete and specific behaviors, emphasizes description over personal approval, points out approximation towards mastery, could be followed by a question to extend the thinking, reflects important goals and values, praises student for their efforts and behaviors, specifically names what they're doing well, supports students in repeating desired behavior, and reminds other students of expectations. So basically, if you see something that you want them to do more of, say what it is they're doing. You give them some praise for it and you point it out, because then they'll do more of it. So instead of, you got that math problem right, good job, how could we make that better? How could we make, you got that math problem right, good job, better? We could say, I know today's math problem was tough for you, but you kept trying. That persistence will help you solve all kinds of problems. So it kind of takes it a step further to reinforce and praise them for that persistence and not giving up. And that's what you want to see more of. It's not just that they got a math problem right, it's that they didn't give up. Praises, sneak peek. Instead of saying nice job reading, you could say, you read 3 books during Reader's Workshop today. What helped you concentrate? So there's that asking a question to extend their thinking. It gives them a chance to reflect on their own progress and what helped them. And it's a place to build some of that relationship with them. But it's a great way to reinforce, improvement. 3 books is so much better than last time. What helped you? Let's do more of that. Let's do that next time. Instead of saying to the class, okay, time to clean up reading, a reinforcing language would be talking to the class and saying, today you read for 15 straight minutes. You're really getting close to your 20-minute goal. What helped you read longer today? So similar to that individual conversation, right? So doing kind of like a wrap up at the end with what went well and reinforcing it so that they'll do it again next time. So some reminding language, so that was reinforcing. Reminding language is based on clearly established expectations. These have to be explained, modeled, and practiced during the first weeks of school. We'll talk a little bit more about that, and I'll talk a ton about it in the first month of kindergarten workshop. It could be in the form of a question or a statement. It could be proactive or reactive. It's used when both the teacher and the child are calm. It reminds students of the expectations. It's brief. It gives students a chance to demonstrate their understanding of the expectations. And it's really effective before you give a direction, before an activity, or when they are just starting to get off track. So it can serve as a reminder of what the desired expectation is. So instead of just saying, stop talking, because again, we want to be in the positive. We don't want to just say what we don't want to see. We could say, what do you need to be doing right now? It's a question. It's not giving a direction. It's saying, I know you know. And so it's just a question. What do you need to be doing right now? Instead of, oops, I spoiled it. Instead of don't get distracted, say, think about what could help you concentrate. So again, you've already had lessons on this. You've practiced this, modeled it. You've already talked about it. So now it's just a quick reminder. Hey, what do you think you might need to help you concentrate? Think about it. Instead of that's not nice, a reminding, direction, question, statement, that's the word, would be, how could you say that in a friendly way? So you're not giving them the words because you've taught about it, you've practiced it, they have, you believe in their ability to fix it, and they just need a quick little reminder. Instead of it's math time, get started, you could say, what will you need to do so you can be ready for math quickly? It's putting that ownership on them to be responsible as opposed to you telling them how to be responsible or what they have to do. And simply saying like, stop, that's not safe. Instead, show me a safe way to do that. So again, it's believing that they can do it. And it's just a show me that you're ready to do this. Show me that you're you can do that safely, things like that. So our final segment of language is redirecting language. It's direct, specific, and brief. It names a desired behavior, sets a firm limit, and it's a statement, not a question, because there's no choices here. It is definite. This is what you expect. Use a firm but calm voice. And you would use it when you've already given a reminder or when a behavior is unsafe or too distracting for others, right? So ideally you do the reminder first. So a kid is getting off task. What do you need to help you concentrate? Oh, okay, give that a try. You leave, they're still not doing it. You come back, then you do the redirecting language. So instead of, why is your work area such a mess? Just simply say, clean up your work area. There's no judgment. There's no frustration. It's just clean up your work area. If you need to get more specific, you could like clean up your worksheets off of your desk. Where do they go? Instead of don't use scissors like that, because that's not helping them know what to do, just say scissors are for cutting paper only. And if that's not working, then they lose the privilege of using scissors, but we'll get to that. Instead of don't throw paper, just pick up the paper off the floor. If instead of stop talking, you could say use quiet voices. So that wraps up our teacher language portion. We're about to get into establishing routines and this part about, like what Tanya said, going slow. So if there's any questions about teacher language, let me know, but I will move on. Go slow to go fast. That is the third big takeaway. I just keep adding takeaways for you. Go slow to go fast. So when you're teaching routines at the beginning of the year and you're practicing your routines, do it slowly. Take the time at the start of school so that your students can be successful through the year and have fewer misbehavior problems. You want to think with the end in mind to determine your classroom procedures and routines. Start planning and preparing procedures and routines before the school year starts. So like, you know, in your head how you're going to want to have kids follow this routine so that you can teach them step by step at the start of school. So you can have a smoothly running classroom in no time. And we'll talk more about this, as I said, in our next workshop. On my Instagram, I've been sharing some routines you might want to think about ahead of time, like how are kids going to order lunch? How are they going to, what happens if their pencil breaks? Like, these are things you're going to want to think about before you start school so that you know how to teach them the expectations when school time, when they're in front of you, when school is happening. Just because you taught it once does not mean they know it. Does not mean they can do it independently. You want to be reteaching procedures and routines anytime you see students not following it. When you see students following it, reinforce it. Hey, you did all the jobs of your morning, all the steps in your morning jobs. That's fantastic. You remembered your folder today. Great job. You know, so it's telling them what it is you want, reminding them of the routines and reinforcing them when they do follow the routines, when they do follow the expectations. As you're getting to know the kids in the classroom, adjust the routines as needed. I have absolutely done this hundreds of times. I'm like, you know what? This is just not working for us, class. Let's try it this way. We're going to practice it. So this is the step. I explain what it is and why. Well, the routine of putting our finished work away in this spot is not working because we always have a traffic jam. And then that causes you to push and shove. So let's try it this way. I'm going to show you how I did it. And then I ask my students, what did you notice I did? How did I do that? So they talk through the steps of the routine. Then I have a few students model it for everyone. We talk through again. I noticed they had their hands by their side. I noticed that they were calm. I noticed they were quiet. Then everyone practices. So I do this when I'm first introducing a routine, but I'll also do this again if I see someone not following the expectations, not just one person, but like if I see the class slipping, I'll just pause and say, you know what? We need to practice that again. If I say go to the rug and everyone starts running over, stop, go back to your seats. We're going to practice that again. Who can show us what's a safe way or what's the expected way to go to the rug? So again, I know they know. So I asked a question, who can show us? And then I have a couple students model. What did everyone notice? They had their arms by their side. They were walking, they pushed their chair in. Let's all try that, right? So I think teachers feel like, well, I taught it. Why do I have to do it again? But if the class is slipping, there's your chance right then and there to be proactive, to teach them, remind them the expectations, practice it again. Because if you let it slip, they see what more they can get away with, and then more start slipping. And they learn that they don't actually have to follow all your expectations because there's not really a consequence for them. So it's really important that when you see it slipping, that you go ahead and reteach it. And again, if you're reteaching it, if you're practicing it again, we want to emphasize that we're reflecting on our behavior, we're reflecting on how we can be better, and we learn from our mistakes. I'm just making sure I said everything. Okay. If there's any other questions, I'll move on, but we will talk a ton more about this idea of setting up routines and expectations in the next workshop as well. Another key component of proactive classroom management is creating rules together. And as an exclusive bonus for showing up here live, I am sharing with you in the chat the link to this poster that you can have. This is what I use in my classroom. So hopefully that link works in the chat. But when you're creating classroom rules, you want to sort of at the beginning of the school year, and I don't do it the first couple of days because I'm just literally teaching how to pull out your chair, how to push in your chair, how to hold a pencil, how to put your pencil away, how to use a marker appropriately, how to put the cap back on. Like, that's what we're doing. We're literally breaking down every tiny little step. That's what I mean by go slow to go fast. You're teaching every little thing. So by around day 4, I start doing this process where we come together and we talk about why rules are important. So in my back to school lesson plans and product, you'll see I have a whole lesson on this, but we read Officer Buckle and Gloria, and we talk about why rules are important, how they're there to keep us safe. So I have kids just like brainstorm a ton of rules. Then the next day we kind of narrow it down, be like, well, these kind of go together, or this could kind of go together. This is kind of a category, because we talk about how that's a ton of rules to remember. That's going to be hard. Well, what if we grouped them together? And so then it kind of very nicely somehow just ends up being in these categories. Because if they're missing one of these, I suggest it to them, like, well, what should we do if this happens or whatever? So then everyone agrees to the rules, they sign the piece of paper, we hang it up, and we mention it a lot and talk about it a lot and refer to it a lot. And I even had students like talking about it even until a couple weeks before school starting. They were like writing books to me about kindergarten rules and using these rules, and they were talking to the class about a rule that they wanted everyone to follow that we weren't maybe following as well. And so it stuck with them. It is important to them anyway. We want to make sure that the rules are concise, they're positively worded. It's what they should do instead of what they shouldn't do. So oftentimes I reframe what they say into a positive way to say it. It should be in a visible location, refer to it as needed. And you use these rules as a framework for teaching expectations. So remember, our classroom rule is to be kind. Well, let's talk about what that means. Or remember, our expectations, be a first-time listener. That's our class promise. I'm so glad, Tanya. And if you're not continually talking about it, it becomes nothing, right? So an activity I love to do at morning meeting is just say, okay, walk around the room and I'm going to call it a class promise and you have to freeze and we have to guess what you're doing, right? So I'll say, okay, you're going to freeze as taking care of the classroom. And I'm like, wow, so-and-so's pushing in their chair. So-and-so's picking up trash. How are you taking care of the classroom? And it's just like an activity, but it gets in their mind. Oh yeah, these are our rules. These are our rules. And I like it, if you hadn't noticed already, but it spells out team. And I think I'm pretty proud of myself for that. I think that's pretty clever. But take care of yourself. Everyone is kind. Always be a first-time listener and make expected choices. Another rule that I had that I really liked was take care of yourself, take care of others, take care of the classroom. Just very simple, but like encompassing. And you can't just like say these rules because they're, and then just leave it at that. You want to get specific of like, what does it mean? And that's where social skills come as it. And that's where social emotional learning comes in. So it's not a one and done thing. Okay. Getting students' attention, being able to get their attention so that they can hear your directions is a big part of classroom management. I hope that this video works with the Zoom. Let me know if you can't hear it, but I'm going to show you some literal clips of me in the classroom getting my students' attention. Clean up, beat the timer, snack time, go ahead, 5 more minutes. I want you to pause and show me a thumb for if you think, thumbs up if you think you're doing all these stations the expected way. Thumb to the side if you're like, maybe I needed a few reminders to do it the right way. Okay, it got cut off, but the point is to see the attention getters. So a big one I do is hands on top and they say, everybody stop. And I like that because their hands are not touching the things that are in front of them. So however you want to do that, you do want to get a way to get their hands off of their objects so that they're not distracted by them. I love call and responses. So I'll do like a sing-songy voice because they get tired of the want, probably like you're tired of my voice now at 40 minutes in. They're hearing the same voice all day long. So I do sing-songy. So I have a message and they say, what is your message? Or 5 more minutes. And they say 5 more minutes. And then I also love having that call and response before directions. So I make it clear, they just repeat after me and I try and do a hand motion too. So first, cut, second, glue. And I try to do a motion, and that act of them repeating what I'm saying and doing the hand motion means that they're more likely to be able to follow the multi-step direction. It's so important to be able to get students' attention in order to give directions as a foundational part of classroom management. If everyone's not listening, then it's one, teaching the class that they don't have to listen, that you're going to just tell the direction. And then when they say, I don't know what you said, you're going to tell them anyway. They're going to learn they don't have to listen to you the first time. And it's going to tell the other kids that they don't have to listen because that kid's not listening. So why do I have to listen? So it's really important when you get everyone's attention. So I say hands on top and they say, everybody stop. I wait. I don't, if someone's really not paying attention, I say their name, Jamie, put your hands on top, right? We're waiting for you. Because I want everyone to know you need to hear this direction. The other important thing is a magic word or phrase. it is a huge pet peeve of mine, but also it's just not helpful when you're giving directions, that you say the first part of the direction and they rush off to go start and you're still giving the next part of the direction. So I make it clear that my magic phrase is go ahead. So they don't take their hands off. They don't start doing the direction. They don't leave their area until I've said, go ahead. And I think that whatever phrase it is you want to use is really helpful, because they need to know that the directions are over. Otherwise, they're, like I said, they're going to run off after your first step, and you're going to be like, but there's more. You're not listening, and I can't get your attention again. So, I know some people in older grades like switch up that magic phrase, like they do a daily one. I just think that's too hard for kindergarten, because I think you should be as consistent as possible. That's my opinion. I also want to recommend nonverbal signals. My school does this hand up raise like thing, and I hate it. It's a school-wide thing. I hate it because it looks like you're raising a hand, or it's sometimes like when the whole school is doing it, looks like something else that is inappropriate. So I don't like it. So I teach my students to go like this, so it's slightly more obvious that it's like quiet signal. I love the quiet coyote. That's what I would use if it was just me and not my whole school. You know, do whatever it is you want, but have some way of getting their attention without making noise. Because when they're talking and they're being very chatty or whatever, when you start calling out over them, that's adding noise to the level, and then they get louder to get over you, and it's just noise on noise on noise. So one of the best strategies you can do is do a nonverbal signal. Like I guess I like the smaller one better than way up here. Anyway, do a quiet signal, a nonverbal signal, and it catches on. And if it's really not, you could tap someone as a way to like get people to catch on. And then when you do, say, oh, I noticed that, the students in the front row really caught my signal right away. And then that helped the other students see the quiet signal, so we could all be quiet and listen to the directions, things like that. You could also use lights, turn the lights on and off, or a gentle bell to get their attention. And that does not involve your voice. It does not involve adding to the volume of the room. But bottom line, find the routine that works best for you. Try out a bunch. And again, like you'll have different students every year. So what works for one group might not work perfectly for another group. And so you want to just try different things out. But when you're introducing it, practice it, model it, practice it again, make it a game, right? Say, okay, go back to playing. I have a message. Oh, you did it. You said, what is your message? Great. Go back and play. You don't have to actually have a message. You can just practice it that way. Get my slides together. Okay. Why is it not switching slides? There we go. Transitions are another time when classroom management is so important. We can be proactive about transitions, and that will help diffuse a lot of misbehaviors. So we want to prepare students for transitions by going over the schedule and having a schedule posted so they know when transitions are happening. Provide a warning before a transition, like 5 more minutes. You could use a visual timer to help children understand what that amount of time means, because they really don't understand what 5 more minutes mean. And there are certain students in particular, as you're getting to know them, actually, we'll come to that in a minute. You want to keep transitions as short as possible, which isn't always easy, but as short as you can, because when you have empty time with nothing to do, kids get bored. That's when misbehaviors happen. So you could engage children during longer transitions with activities like singing songs. Like I'll say, like when we clean up from snack in my room and math is next, I want them to come to the rug. The kids are going in dribbles and trickling in. for cleaning up their snacks. Some of them are done, some of them are not done, some of them are dilly-dallying. And so I sit on the rug and I sing songs, or we play a game, or I read a book, so that, or I play a video if I can't be on the rug. I have something going, so that, like a movement break, or whatever, so that as kids are coming to the rug, they are jumping right into the activity. It's not something that is important, that if they miss, it's not a big deal, but it helps them so they aren't misbehaving while they're waiting around. So the students who struggle with transitions, you want to provide extra warnings to them individually. You could give them a personal timer, like a sand timer. This is where you want to get to know your students, because some students that might be more triggering than not having it. So just try it out and see. And I would try out a couple of times before you decide to switch. You could give them a specific transition job, like, hey, when we clean up from playtime, you are in charge of all the dinosaurs. Okay. You also could customize more for them by being, saying, making it more specific. Like, after you color in three last red things, then we're going to all clean up. Or after you do 3 more Lego pieces, we're cleaning up. Or as you get to know them, hey, you're about to clean up. Do you want to save your piece of Legos? Do you want to maybe take a picture? Right? So give them options to save. As you get to know your students, you'll know what helps them. I have found that specific warning helps kids that struggle. The warning and the direction. So after, and I sort of plan my transition based on that. If it's a child that really struggles with transition. So after 2 more Lego pieces, we're going to clean up. And then I wait for them to do it. And then I make the transition, and I'll say to them, okay, it's cleanup time. You're in charge of all the red Legos, or pick up 10 pieces off the floor, whatever, something specific for them to do. A number is way more effective than just clean up. Why aren't you cleaning up? It's time to clean up. You have to clean up, stuff like that. Okay. I'm going to very quickly we're running out of time. I have so much to say about this topic. I might go over a little bit, just because I don't want you to miss out, if that's okay, but you can leave if you have to, and I'll send the recording. I'm going to do what I can, though, to get done as quickly as possible by 8. Behavior is communication, as we've talked about. So when we view misbehaviors as opportunities to teach new skills or reinforce social skills, it's information for us about what social emotional skills the students need to learn. When we teach social emotional skills, we want to explicitly provide instructions and examples and step-by-steps, and then give them time to practice those skills. We want to avoid a vague statement like just be kind, but be really specific with specific feedback and suggestions and exactly what it means to be kind. How can you be kind? We want to help students recognize and communicate their feelings effectively, because if they can't identify how they're feeling or regulate their emotions, then there's only so much that we can do to help them when they're in an escalated state. And we want to provide social skills instruction for the whole class, but we also might need individual guidance when misbehavior occurs. And we want to look at those misbehaviors as opportunities to teach social skills. And we'll talk a ton more about this in our social emotional learning workshop. That's a bundle bonus. So if you bought the bundle, you'll be at this workshop and you'll get a ton more about this. I'm gonna just do this very quickly and we'll get more into it in that workshop. But one of the social emotional skills you want to teach your students is listening, and that will help classroom management. You want to teach students exactly what it means to show that they are listening. And that way, when you come to the rug and they're not listening, you can say, show me that you're listening. Oh, I see so-and-so's listening with their eyes. Oh, I see people listening with their hands. Show me that you're listening with your body, nice and calm. Thank you. Right? Because you've taught it and broken it down step by step of what listening looks like and why we listen to others, then you can use it as a reminder when you come to the rug. Another social skill that oh, so glad, Wendy. Yay for other topics. I know so many things that I just want to tell you. What other social emotional skill you really want to teach is the idea of expected and unexpected choices. I don't like that was a good choice or bad choice, because it hurts confidence in kids, self-image and esteem. It sort of puts it on the character of the child as opposed to the behavior. And so we talk a lot about what it means to be expected versus unexpected. And I emphasize the reaction of others. So if it makes them uncomfortable, or if they're confused or surprised or scared by what you're doing, or if they don't like it, it's unexpected. If it's not following our promises, so it comes back to the rules we made as a class, which is why that's an important foundational piece. If it's not following those rules, it's unexpected. We're not expecting you to be jumping around the room right now. We're expecting you to be sitting and working, right? And so I just like the language of that better, because it's more about the action than the child. We'll get into a ton of this, but that's an important like lesson and skill topic to teach, to help you with your classroom management. This is probably the part you want the most help with: responding to misbehavior. When you're responding to misbehavior, consider how many times this behavior has occurred before determining the appropriate response. So like each instance gets its own thought process for me. It's not like a formula I can just generally follow, because I want to know the child. I want to know how many times this has happened. Is this something like a skill that they're working on or not, that they already know? Like, there's a lot of individual things for each instance of misbehavior. So I think about all this very quickly, and then I give my reaction. So if it's the first time the student misbehaves, I just have them redo the behavior with the correct language and the choices. So scissors are for cutting paper, right? If they're trying to cut a pencil, trying to, scratch the table, scissors are for cutting paper. That's it. I walk away. Still happening? I give a logical consequence. If I come back and they're still doing it, well, I already just reminded them the expectation. So now I'm going to give you a logical consequence, which in this case, I would say, all done with scissors, find something else to do, or we'll have to do this activity later because you need to take a break from scissors, or I'll cut for you. Although I don't love that one. If it's like an expectation, I don't want them to get out of doing the work. You know what I mean? I'd rather just have them do it later. But it's a loss of privilege that they can't use the scissors right now. A really, really good one, if kids are using the whiteboard markers inappropriately. This is a problem in my class this year. Oh, now you have to use paper and pencil, and they hate that. So that's a great consequence. And we'll talk about consequences in just a second. If the behavior keeps happening, then I would consider a timeout, not like a timeout, go to timeout, but just take a break. So what I would say is go to the control spot, is what I call like my calm down corner. It's where you go to get your body in control. I have a whole blog post on how to set it up if that's something you're interested in. And we'll talk more about the calm corner in the social emotional workshop. But I'll just neutral facial expression. I'm trying not to be judgmental. I have a calm tone of voice, and I'll just say, it looks like your body needs to take a break. Go get your body in control. Go to the control spot. Or even more simple, like control spot. And then when they go and they calm down, then I talk to them about like, why do you think I sent you here? What could we do better? What did we learn from this? What are we going to do next time? Stuff like that. Okay. Consequences should be respectful, focused on the behavior, related, and realistic. So we want to help students develop internal controls as opposed to being reliant on people telling them what they can or can't do. We want them to be able to know for themselves what is a good decision. We want to be calm and matter of fact before reacting. And we want to use the opportunity of the consequence to help fix the damage or repair, and to guide future behavior choices. So here's an example for if they're talking too much. A consequence could be, I'm going to have you leave the rug and go sit at your desk until you're ready to be quiet. Or take a minute in the control spot and calm down and come join us when you're ready. Or come join us in 1 minute. or I'm going to have you work at the teacher table because you're being really, your talking is really distracting to other kids right now. So teacher table, right? Just those are some examples. I don't have time to totally get into the calm corner, but I promise we'll talk about it if you'd like. But every space in a classroom should have a calm corner, cozy corner, take a break space, whatever you want to call it. Like I said, I call mine the control spot because the goal is get your body in control. Like that's their job. But ideally it's just a safe space away from the group where you can still keep an eye on them, but other kids aren't like staring at them, because that when kids are escalated, they don't want kids staring at them. And it's a place to go regulate their emotions. You do need to teach students how to use the space in order, and just like any other routine in the classroom, or else they won't use it effectively. And so, yeah, we'll talk more about that later. Oh my goodness, so many things to teach you. If you don't mind staying a little longer, I'll get to it. So choices can be your best friend, but you want to use them wisely. So you only want to give a choice when there is a choice to give. So want to go put on your jacket? The kid will say no. And you're like, it's cold outside, you have to put on your jacket, but you gave them the choice and now they said no, right? So just by eliminating directions as questions, as, please, can you go do this, or want to go do this? Like, no, if it's a direction, if there's not a choice, then you want to say it exactly as a direction. Go put on a jacket. It's time to go outside. It's time to clean up. Or you need to wear your jacket. It's cold. It's not a choice to not wear your jacket today, right? Make it clear that it's not a choice, that this is the direction they have to follow. And when there can be a choice, you definitely want to give choices, because it's way more motivating for kids to make a choice. And you can limit it to 2 choices so that it's simple and easy to follow, but also gets your goal done of the following the direction. So you can put on your jacket yourself, or I can help you, or you can put your jacket on first, or you can put your snow pants on first, whatever. But either way, you're putting on the jacket, right? So when you think that someone will have some resistance to what you're saying, pull out the choices. They're your best friend, right? Or like when you're doing work time, if you can pull out a choice, you can use crayons or markers. It just makes it way more motivating and engaging for students. Those misbehaviors, as I mentioned, are your moments to teach social skills. Not the only moment, because I still want you to do explicit instruction that involves like the whole class. But when you're seeing misbehaviors, that's a chance to really target that individual instruction. So you also could turn it into a whole class, right? So you could stop the class if you're noticing an issue with many kids, or you could just talk one-on-one. But you might want to take an issue that happens with a couple of kids, and later, not right then and there, but later, have that be a social emotional lesson on, I saw this happening with a couple of friends. Like, let's act this out with puppets. How could we solve it? What could we do better? How could we be better friends? Things like that. But here's your chance to really help the children reflect on behaviors. So you want to go over the expectation and how it's been lacking, how they haven't been following the expectation, have them reflect on their performance and maybe make a goal for what they want to do better. And not necessarily a goal for like all 4 class promises. Like, let's choose one promise that we want to really work on today, one rule that we really want to focus on, or one expectation of stations is work the whole time, work quietly, clean up expectations, and put the ownership on them. I think I froze. Okay. Put the ownership on them to really follow through. But it's a great chance to not just be like, you're not doing the math lesson right, you're not doing math stations right, but just let's all get together and review and set a goal for what we could be doing better. And it's a great reminder of what the expectations are. Here was a problem, I saw a bunch of kids, not just one, it just kept popping up that they were playing games and they were like, you cheated, no, you cheated. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm hearing this, I try to deal with it individually, and then I hear it again and again. I'm like, nope, let's talk as a whole class. Right. So we, as a class, brainstormed solutions to prevent yelling, "You cheated." And so we said you could ask someone who knows the rules, or you could say, would you roll? What did you roll again? Or what piece am I? Like asking questions to your partner. And these are things that they suggest themselves. And so because they suggested it, they had more ownership over it. And another, issue we had was we noticed a lot of markers and glue did not have caps. So we brainstormed as a class, so we can check the cap when we're done, check under the tables when it's cleanup time. We can check under the bins, keep the caps on the end of markers so we don't lose them. They did that. That was their idea. And it helped reinforce the expectations of taking care of the classroom. So these misbehaviors turning into teachable moments, they remind students of behavior expectations, and at the same time help teach social emotional skills. Behavior plans are not for the whole class. I would say 1 to 3 students at most. If you need help with behavior plans, I have a whole blog post on it. And because of time, I won't get into too much. But what you want to do is start with the most pressing behavior to address. You want to focus on something that's happening the most frequently, or is the most dangerous, or the most disruptive to the class. And you want to make a behavior chart with what it is you want them to be doing. Again, not don't do this, but what should they be doing? And you want some visual representations, especially for kindergarten. You want to have more frequent check-ins at first, and more opportunities for them to be successful. And then you wean it down, right? So you're like, if you get 3 out of 4 checks, then you can get this reward that I know you'd like. Maybe start out with 2 out of 4 checks so they can be more successful. And then, oh, you've done so good with getting 2 checks. Think you can do 3? Let's do it. But the key to behavior plans working is doing them consistently and to having rewards that students enjoy. And I would say limiting it to 1, maybe 2 of the most extreme behaviors that you're seeing. You can always change the behaviors as they get really good. You've done so good with showing whole body listening. I've noticed though that you're still struggling with being kind to your friends or using kind words. So let's switch those out. You definitely need to communicate with parents and involve them in the process. I mean, saying like, this is what I'm seeing, this is what I want to do, is important. And then getting them on board, like that they agree to do that is important. Yeah, I can help more about that. If you ever want to send me an email, let me know. I did want to just go through these quick examples because I think these are things that teachers see all the time and how I would, in an ideal world, respond to them. So if a student spills milk during snack time, it's simply, I'll help you find a sponge and clean it up, or get some paper towels and clean it up. It's just, there's no need to be like reactive. It's just mistakes happen, go clean it up. A child draws on the table instead of the paper, happens all the time. Markers are for paper. Here's a wipe, clean up the table, right? So they can repair the damage that they did when they misbehaved. A student pushes to get a place in line. I see you push people to get in line. You'll have to get out of line and wait and back with me. Tomorrow you can try again on your own. So I always emphasize, like, next recess you can try again. If they lose a privilege, tomorrow you can try again. Next recess you can try again, whatever. A child talks continually to a neighbor during a group activity. Take a break, go to the control spot, or I need you to go to the teacher table and work there. That's it. So I'll just do a couple of these because I think common things I want you to see my thought process of when I see a child with misbehaviors. So there's a kindergarten girl, we'll call her E. She has difficulty expressing her dislikes or her frustrations in a calm, kind way. So she often resorts to yelling or crying. And when she cries, she has a very hard time calming down. And she's very concerned with what others are doing and gets upset if they are not doing what's expected. So some of the things that I thought about was I wanted to make sure to teach her emotional regulation when she's calm, because when she's escalated, that's not a time to teach her new information. And I wanted her to practice often so that eventually when she is upset, she can start to do it on her own. to regulate herself. I want to teach her to take 5 deep breaths when she's feeling upset. So we did a lot of that as a class. We did a lot of that with her. And I want to teach her about the size of the problem and how to handle small problems with small reactions. Not a quick fix. Consistency is key, but over time, huge progress. You have to be consistent and you can't give up on it. And you have to keep teaching those skills when kids are calm and looking at the misbehavior as, hey, I need help learning this skill. Then you see it pay off. So here's another one. A first grade boy, R, had been working all year to stay focused during work times and staying quiet on the rug. He has a diagnosis of ADHD. And he's been really successful using strategies and tools to sustain attention and to stay quiet during work times. But then his behavior regressed a few months later and he had trouble staying quiet and staying focused again. And he started bothering his peers during work times and would sometimes throw objects around the room. Very first thing I did, talk to the parents, tell them what I noticed, and ask them, has anything changed recently? Well, it turns out the family was moving in a month, and often this is very common. Children regress or show escalating behaviors when a big change has happened. And so as soon as you see a big change, call right away, see if that could be the cause of the issue. So now that I knew he was moving, I wrote him a social story about moving and how he'll have new friends at his new school, but he can still see his old friends. And that social story, time and time again, someone's moving, I see huge increases in behaviors. This social story helps so much with it just immediately calms them down. They're like, oh, that is exactly how I'm feeling. I didn't know how to express that. And now I know that I can still see my friends. I don't have to worry about that. Okay, I think this is the last one. There's a first grade boy new to the school. T struggles with staying quiet and seated on the rug. He often gets up in the middle of the lessons and does break dance or jumps. And he also struggles to stay on task during work times and follows the teachers around the room or throws books or pencils or math tools. So some thought processes. Take data on the main behaviors. What is the behavior that is most disruptive or occurs the most? And I focused on 1 or 2 expected behaviors to start, and I created and implemented a behavior plan, right? So, yeah, that was a lot. I'm happy to answer questions if you want to ask and chat a little bit more. I have the time, I don't mind. I also want to encourage you to come to the future workshops because we'll get into a lot in getting through the first month of kindergarten and the social emotional learning workshop. And you can also always reach me by email or, messages on Instagram for help. But any questions on all of that information? Oh, I'm so glad that it was so helpful. So glad. If there's no other questions, we can say goodnight and see you next week. Hopefully, our next workshop is Tuesday, July 11th from 4 to 5. I do hope switching up the days and times helps so that more people can come to at least some of the live workshops. And hopefully I got the recording right this time so my face isn't blocking half of the slideshow. But yeah, thank you so much, Katie and Tanya and Wendy. And I'm sorry, I'm not sure what your first name is, but I'd love to thank you as well for being here live and participating. So thank you and have a great night, everybody.